This video goes over Unit 3, Lesson 25. This is the last lesson for this unit, and it's over the game design process. So we're going to go to the overview here in Canvas. So just like you've been learning before, you've been learning how to build a game. And the last several lessons, you've been doing you did the flyer game, you did the jumper game, you did the frog game, where the frog and the mushroom and the fly. You did the bunny, where the bunny catches the coin and there's a score. So there's different games that you've been creating, but now you're going to create most of it from scratch in code.org with this one. So they're going to show you that entire game design process. So read through the learning goals and make sure you read everything, all of the lesson materials, and then you're going to do that assignment in code.org. Okay, so in this lesson, it says you're going to be introduced to multi-frame animations. Okay, so this is another process of how you design games. And this is called Defend Your Cake Project. So we're going to go to the assignment page, which is next, and then we're going to go to code.org. So here's the assignment page. Go ahead and click to open that assignment up and make a copy of it. And because this is the entire lesson, it's just one thing you're going to be submitting. There's the Defend Your Cake game, which takes you all the way through level 1 to level 12, and then you're going to put your share link, and then you're going to do one of the challenges. Right, so that is the lesson 25 worksheet. So let's go to code.org. So here we are, lesson 25 of code.org, the game design process. So you are going to create a game called Defend Your Cake. So this is an example of a Defender game that you're going to build by the end of this lesson. So Defend Your Cake, you're going to move the alien with arrow keys to block the ladybugs and push them into the water. So we're going to run this program. So this is what's nice. At level 1, they're showing you how this program works. So you've got the alien over there, and I can move the alien forward. I can move the alien up, alien down. If the ladybugs, who are the attackers, if they touch the cake, then you lose points. And if I can push them off into the water, see if I can push that ladybug, you can see I get points back. So if I can push them off in the water, I get points back. If they touch the cake, then I lose points. And the alien, you can see I can move left, I can move right. You can see how the alien animation, the eye moves left, the eye moves right. I can go up and down. You can see that the alien that's the multi-frame animation. You see how the alien is moving with the legs, so it looks like the alien is walking. So this is the game. You have the bridge, and you have the score, and you have the cake. So this is the game that you're going to be recreating for lesson 25. So this is the Defend Your Cake activity. All right, so as you're making this program, you're going to need sprites. So you can see the sprites you're going to need. You're going to have to think about what variables you're going to need and what functions you're going to use. So you're going to use everything that you've learned from lessons 3 through 24, and you're going to put all that knowledge together. So if you need to go back and review anything in the previous lessons, please go do that. So let's go to level 2. So level 2, depending upon your teacher might have you actually fill out a project guide. And so they might give that to you. And then some teachers might not have you fill out a project guide, and they just might have you sketch it out. So it's up to your teacher if they're going to have you do a project guide or not. So click Continue. So on level 3, this is when you're getting started. So they start you out with some code. So you can see if you read through this code, you got some variables going on here. You got the cake, the player, the enemy 1, enemy 2. Okay, so the player is the alien, and then enemy 1 is the ladybug, enemy 2. So it says you want some better animations for each of your sprites. So the thing is, they're saying before you get started, you need to put some animations in there. So here you created the sprites, but you can see it says the cake is defined, but it's not called in your program. So you need to set that animation. correct? So this is where in the animation tab, there's animations for your sprite. Go see what they look like. And then you can use the ones provided now, and then later you can change those sprites if you want. So all we're doing is, look in here, you got the alien that walks right, you have the cake, and you have the ladybug. And that's the animations you need for now. So just remember, you're going to use this set animation, because even though you've created it, now you have to set an animation for each one of these, okay, so that they will show when I click run. Right now, I can see this. This is actually a sprite location, but that's all this did. It says variable cake right here, variable cake create sprite 350-200. So that's this gray box, but there's no animation to it. So that's where you got to put the animation in. And this one says create the player at 200-200. Well, 200-200 is right here. So that gray box, that's where the alien's supposed to be, or the player. But you got to set that animation over there. And then enemy 1 and 2 are both up in this left-hand corner. So that's their gray box. So right now they're just gray boxes because you created the variable. But you need to bring that set animation to give them a actual sprite character. Okay? So that's what you're going to do here. Once you have that done, make sure you reset and run that program so that you actually see that character up here. Okay, so I've already kind of given you the hint. 1, 2, 3, 4, choose their animations. Then go to level 4. So each one of these, as you do the activity, it builds and keeps creating your cake defender project, or defend your cake project. So from here it says moving the enemies. It says you'll need to get your enemy sprites to a random position and moving across the screen. So just like we showed back on level 1, where you can go back and look at that game, you want them moving across the screen from left to right. So keep referring back to level 1 if you need to see how this activity works. And it says after each enemy sprite is created, set its X position equals to 0, set its Y position to be a random number between 150 and 250, and set its velocity to 2. So these 3 things you're going to be applying to your enemies. 1 and enemy 2. So you're going to have to be dragging down 3 different more blocks per enemy. Enemy 1 gets X position is 0. So remember, X position, right? X position, Y position, right? And then it's velocity. Okay? And then I already kind of gave you the hint that you have to set that animation. So that's just kind of giving you an idea. You have to know what you got to do from here. I just gave you quite a few hints right there, and it already tells you how to do that. So that just kind of gets you started. So once you have that figured out, make sure you're doing whatever enemy 1 that you're doing the same thing for enemy 2. Okay, once you've got that figured out, then go to, and it works, then go to level 5. And on level 5, now you need to get your alien or your player moving left to right. Okay? So it says now you'll just need to get your character, which is the player, which is the alien, moving left to right and changing its animation. So it says it wants you to go to inside the move player function, which is right down here, okay, because they've already kind of named the functions for you. Enemy touches cake, move player, displace, and enemies touch water. All right, there's the show score function. So you're going to work in this one, this function here, you're going to create the following. You're going to use a conditional to detect when the right arrow is pressed. So remember, add a conditional in there, so move player. And then you're going to add within that, if you move right, then it says move the player sprite to the right by 3. So that's its X position. So remember, so you're going to use your key code or your mouse code, the arrows, put that in there for your if, right? So if the key is pushed down, then you got to move the sprite by 3. okay, the sprite velocity. Okay, so I can't tell you more than that. I'm just kind of giving you a little hint here. And then it says use another conditional to move the player to the left. So if this is your right, then whatever you did there, you would just put another if, and now you would make it if the left key is pushed down. So these are things you learned in other lessons, how to move code. So if you're not quite sure how to do this, go back to the keyboard input lesson, because that's what this is, making it left and right. So once you've got that done, then you can go to level 6. I want to jump back though to level 1 just to kind of show you again how this is supposed to look. So you can see when I do left, alien moves left, or the player. When I click right, that's what it does. So you should be at this point, you would have the ability that your ladybugs are moving across the screen and that your player can move left and right. And that's it. Not up and down yet, just left and right. So that's where you would be when you're done with level 5. Now then go to level 6, and now you want to move your player up and down. So same thing, you're going to add some more if statements. You need to add that if statement. You need to add those extra if statements, move player. So you have one for move right, move left, and now you got to have one for move down and move up. Okay, again, I'm not going to give you all the information of what you got to put in these. You just got to read right here because it tells you. Okay, and again, you can go back and refer to the keyboard input lesson if you need help. And then once you've got your alien or your player moving up and down and left and right, then go to level 7. And then in level 7, they want you to change the animation. So if we go back here and look at level 1 carefully, in that animation, we run it. As I go left, you see the eye of the alien goes left. And if I go to the right, the eye of the alien points to the right. So that's what you're doing on level 7. You're adding in 2 different animations. So it says inside the animation tab, copy the animation of your sprite, flip each frame of the new animation so the sprite is facing the opposite direction, rename your new animation. So if we go to animation, it's called Alien Walk Right. You would want to flip that and call it Alien Walk Left. So you'd want to duplicate it, flip it, and make that alien. So here's my duplicate, and then I want to flip that, okay, and then call that Alien Left. And I can just call that Alien Left. So there's kind of just showing you how I did that. All right? Then you're going to follow the rest of these directions until when you run your code, the alien when you click left looks left, and the alien when you click right looks right. When you're done with that, go to level 8. And on level 8, now you want those enemies, the ladybugs, when they touch the cake, you want the score to go to decrease. Okay, so on this one, you're just writing code for only one of your enemies. So follow the directions in here. It tells you exactly, it says inside the enemy's touch cake function. So here is the enemy's touch cake function. And follow these steps right here. Okay, so it's going to tell you exactly what to do. If you need to go back and review how to put a if statement right there. So you're going to start with the if statement, obviously, because it's if, remember, is touching. Okay, so if you need to go back to that lesson where sprites interaction, the is touching lesson that went over that. So if, the enemy 1 is touching cake, okay, whatever the cake's called, is touching and then cake, right? It's called cake. Then what happens? So you're going to put that in here. So it means you got to set the Y position back to a random number, increase the counter pattern to decrease the score by 2. So you're also going to have to decrease the score. So remember, score equals score minus 2. Okay, so if you need to go back, you might need to go back and look at other lessons. to do this, but I'm just kind of giving you some hints. When you have the score increasing or actually decreasing, then go to level 9. So it's when the aliens touch the cake. And now you would just take that code. So that was for the first, if you figured it out for the first one, then all you have to do is copy that code for the second ladybug. So now it says, hey, you got the first ladybug, that enemy touching the cake, and the score goes down. Now let's just copy that code and call it for the second for enemy number 2. Okay, so that's all you're doing for this level 9. And then for level 10, you are now creating some functions. So you have your program includes code in 2 places to set the enemies on the left side of the screen at a random Y. You can create functions to reset each of your 2 enemies to remove, so you can remove all these repetitions from your program. Okay, so it just wants you to go at the bottom of your program, create 2 new functions. So it wants you to create 2 new functions down here. And it wants you to create those 2 new functions is set enemy 1 and set enemy 2. All right, so you're just going to come down here and say set enemy. It's showing you how to make a shortcut for stuff instead of having to code so much. All right, so you've got those 2 down there. And then it says inside of these functions, place the code that sets the enemies on the left side of the screen. See right here, they're showing you. Here's that code that's found somewhere else up here that you've created previously in another level, and just drag it into that function. Okay, and then you got to call those. So then you'd have to call your functions too. You'd have to drag this over also to call your functions. Okay, so that's all I'm going to tell you, because this is something that you've learned over the past 20 from lesson 3 to 24, specifically over the last, from like lesson 18 to 24. Most of this stuff, you can go back and review any of those lessons to help you out. But specifically, you would probably want to go to lesson 24, because this is about functions. So once you got that figured out, then go to lesson, or actually level 11. And on level 11, now that wants you just to displace the enemies. So this is where the alien, let's go back to level 1, this is where the alien was displacing. So it used that sprite displace. So where the alien can push that sprite off into the water, and it's called displacement. So pushing that off is displace sprite. So if you go back, that's what that characteristic, that property that you need to work with. So you're going to be using the displace enemies function. Okay, so you're going to write code inside that displace enemies function, which is down here, displace enemies. All right, so remember you're going to use probably this, sprite displace. Okay, so write the code that makes the player displace both enemy sprites. Test your code to make sure it's working. So you might need to go back to the lesson that shows those sprite interactions, where how the sprite displace works. Once you've got that working, where the player pushes the enemy off into the water, then go to level 12. And then on level 12, so you're building this one little bit at a time. So here it's like touching the water. So when the aliens touch the water, then you want them to, so you're going to be writing code inside the enemies touches water function. So that's way down here at the bottom. Enemy touches water. So it says use an if statement to check where the enemy 1 is off at the top of the bridge by checking whether its y value is below 140. Within your if statement, do the following. Use your set enemy function to reset the sprite and add 1 to the score. So this is where if the enemy touches the water, this is where you get points back. Because remember when you saw the alien push the enemy into the water, you got a point back. So that would be a score plus, score equals score plus 1, right? To add. So follow those directions. That's all I'm going to tell you. You're going to be working in that function called enemies touch water. You're going to follow the do this. If you need help, go back to the lesson 24, and you might have to go back to some other lessons to learn how to do this. Okay, if you don't remember, you should know by now how to create that, how to create this stuff within the function. Okay, this is a big project. This is worth, I believe, 110 points, I believe, for this entire project. Depends on your teacher. Your teacher might have more than that or less points than that. But at this point, when everything's working, similar to what we saw on level 1 here, the example, then you would get the share button, copy your link, and then that you would paste in your assignment right here. I have this for 100 points on here. Okay, so it depends on your teacher. And then you would do one of the challenges. So you go to level 13, and the challenge here is just choose one of these challenges. So create a new background that shows up when the player reaches a good score. So it's just you editing the game that you've created. You might want to add to your game, randomize the speed of the enemy. Or you might want to add to your game to change the visuals. So change the visuals of the game so that your player, enemies, or cake look different. You might want to add the end game. So choose one of these that you want to add to your game. And then you would click on it, go to that activity, complete it, and then you would paste that code here on your worksheet. And that is it for lesson 25 and over the game design process.